So with free agency well underway and rumors about teams meeting with star players like Juan Soto getting leaked to the media, we're starting to learn a lot more about what the strategy for these Toronto Blue Jays is going to be this offseason, and it looks like that's going to include going after a starting pitcher. Under Ross Atkins, we've seen this team really pivot to a squad that prioritizes defense and prioritizes starting pitching, and he's been known in the past to go out and sign some big-time starters during free agency. And while starting pitching might not feel like the biggest need right now for the Toronto Blue Jays, there is certainly a ton of talent available at that position, and it's looking like the Toronto Blue Jays aren't going to leave this offseason without scooping up at least one big name. What's up, folks, and welcome back to the channel. In this one, we're going to discuss the latest reports surrounding the Toronto Blue Jays that have them linked to some big-time starting pitchers this free agency. Before we get into it, I encourage you guys to hit the like and smash the subscribe button if you enjoy Blue Jays content and discussion so you don't miss any future videos. All right, folks, let's get into it. So it was recently reported by Ben Nicholson-Smith during the GM meetings that the Toronto Blue Jays have a big interest in some starters. I brought this up in a recent video, but Ben wrote, for one, they're going to be involved in the market for starting pitching, not just relievers. While it was their bullpen that struggled most last year, posting an American League worst 4.82 ERA, the Blue Jays are also expected to pursue starting pitchers in free agency. If they sign an established starter, Kikuchi for the sake of argument, they could move Yariel Rodriguez to the bullpen, augmenting their pitching staff as a whole while building out valuable depth behind their starting five. In theory, it would be a way to upgrade their rotation and bullpen at once. Now, at the time when Ben wrote this piece, I was thinking that the Toronto Blue Jays might go out and target a fourth or fifth pitcher for their rotation, but according to Jeff Passan, it's looking like it could be somebody a lot bigger than that. Passan recently linked the Toronto Blue Jays to Corbin Burnes, saying, "The most coveted domestic pitcher warrants his own category too, and even at a high price point, the 30-year-old is drawing significant interest. He could be an anchor to the Giants rotation alongside Logan Webb, or add to an already strong quartet of Blue Jays starters with Kevin Gausman, Jose Barrios, Chris Bassett, and Bowden Francis, who had a 1.53 ERA in 9 games after he transitioned to starting August 7th. Corbin Burnes would obviously be incredible and is definitely the biggest fish when it comes to the starting pitcher market, but he isn't the only person that the Jays have currently been linked to. Passan also talked about Max Fried coming to Toronto, saying he's exactly the sort of pitcher the Red Sox would like to anchor their rotation as their ascent back to contention begins. Toronto is in." Now, in complete transparency, the thought of the Blue Jays spending another $100 or $150 million on another aging starting pitcher is a little scary because we already have so much money tied up in that rotation. But when we actually look at the books, it starts to make a little bit more sense. In 2025, the Blue Jays are going to be paying for Kevin Gausman, Chris Bassett, and Jose Barrios in that rotation, with all of them being around that $20 million mark, if not just a little bit above it. After next year, though, Chris Bassett is going to be off the books, which is $22 million that the Toronto Blue Jays no longer need to spend. And then after 2026, Kevin Gausman is also going to be off the books, which is another $23 million that the Jays are no longer on the hook for. So if you really think about it, if the Jays were to lock somebody up like a Max Fried to a 5-year deal or something like that, then he would just sort of take over for a Chris Bassett when his time is up, and Toronto wouldn't have this weird interim period where the rotation is just completely desolate.
Whoa, time for a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video. Hit your picks and knock it out of the park with Betway. Scan the QR code down below to join the action. Only available in Ontario. Must be 19 years of older to participate. Please play responsibly. Now, everyone, back to the content.
Another starter that Jeff Passan didn't bring up, but Sportsnet has recently talked about in regards to the Toronto Blue Jays, is Jack Flaherty. And if you guys have been following this channel for a little while, then you know, effectively ever since the trade deadline last year, I have been all over Jack Flaherty. The one thing I worry about with some of the starters that Passan brought up is that they're all getting up there in age, whereas Flaherty just turned 29 years old, and you gotta hope that that would allow allow him to have a couple more years before the regression starts to hit compared to some of those other guys. Ultimately, it does look like your Toronto Blue Jays are going to be going out and grabbing a starter this winter. The biggest question now is which one is it gonna be? But folks, let me know what you think about all this in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, go Jays go.